Ashoka University. She has previously taught at Georgetown University, Washington, D.C., University of Delhi, educated at St. Stephen College, Cambridge University, and Jawaharlal University. She is the recipient of the research grants from the British Academy, Andrews Mellon Foundation, and Charles Wallace India Trust. Her books include Waiting for Swaraj, Inner Lives of the Indian Revolutionaries, My Son Inheritance, A Sacred History of the Lynching and Blood Justice of India, Blood in Injustice in India. And she has got another important book which has come out is this Encounter and Inland History. This is some of the, very, very brief introduction. Secondly, take care of, next is Mrs. Farah Naqvi. She is a human rights activist. Farah Naqvi is an Indian feminist, writer, educator, consultant, and activist known for significant contribution to justice, diversity, unity, equality, and inclusion. She's been working for the human rights, and she's been given the award by the Human Rights for the Delhi Minority Commission for her services. She's also worked in the NSC, which was formed at the time of Manmohan Singh, then Prime Minister. We go to the next panelist of the day is, we have Surinder Jodhka. Surinder Singh Jodhka is a human rights activist and caste spectre in India, professor of School of Sciences, JNU, Honors and Award. He is the recipient of the ICCR Amartya Sen Award for Distinguished Social Services and visiting professor, University of Lund, Sweden, and associate professor, University of Berg, University of Wisconsin. He is the writer of a number of books, and his recent book was on the village, was very well received. He has recently been selected for distinguished contributors to the development of studies by Madras Foundation, Malcolm and Elizabeth. Coming to our moderator for this one is Mr. Colin Gonsalves, he is a senior advocate. Well, he started as he's IIT graduate, started with a junior worker, junior leader, and eventually shifted to the legal system. And today what you hear, what you see him, he is with us today. He has written, edited, and co-edited a number of books, and books on the range of human rights law issues. And he is the founder of the Human Rights Law Network in India. Mr. Colin was awarded Human Rights Lively Award in 2017. I won't say much on that. And over to Mr. Colin now. All the panelists will have a 10 minutes time to make up some of the losses, and let's see how much justice they can do to the job. And she's in a hurry to go. I think we can, Colinji, you can request for her to take over.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is the third and last session. Farah Naqvi has requested that she speak first and then go, and all the panelists are agreed. So we'll go in this sequence: Farah Naqvi, Professor Aparna, and then Professor Surinder. So we start right away because we're running behind time. Farah, please.
Thank you so much, Colin Gonsalves, Pratap Singh Ji, the Sikh Forum, and everyone who's stayed through this afternoon, despite, I'm sure, the hunger pangs in all your stomachs, because this is a very, very important day for me. And I am privileged and honored that the Sikh Forum once again has invited me to be part of this moment with you. I was part of this moment maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I think Pratap Singh Ji had invited me. This was at the Constitution Club, if I remember correctly, because it matters to me. It matters to my sense of justice. It matters to my place in this country, that everybody has a place in this country. This is not an occasion where one gives speeches, and we have a limitation of time. So let me just try and not get emotional, because I always get emotional when I talk about something that happened in my city. I was born here. I was brought up here. And this is a memory that will never be, there was a young person over there, I think it was you, who asked about how we let the young generation know about what happened. People want to forget. Last night I was at a dinner and they said, Sunday ko, I said, I have to go to this event. And they said, ये क्या event पे जा रही हो यार? तुम activist लोग हमें भूलने ही नहीं दोगे. It made me think, what do you mean हम तुम्हें भूलने नहीं देंगे? You see, ये भूलने और भुलाने की भैया आगे बढ़ो, अब जिंदगी इतनी बची है, तुम लोग इसी दलदल में जीते रहोगे, looking back, look forward, new India, Modi India, वंदे भारत, बुलेट ट्रेन, ये भाषा बोलो. तुम लोग ये क्या इंसाफ के दलदल में हमको फंसाते हो? मैंने कहा नहीं, you cannot forget, because our future is built on the bedrock of our past. You cannot have a wounded and a bleeding past unresolved to bequeath to your children. They will never live a peaceful future in their hearts, in their souls. Every time 1984 is mentioned, they will cringe with discomfort. They will know my family buried something. I know it should have been discussed openly. This is what psychological trauma is. We cannot afford, and we will not forget this, because we do need to build a future based on the resolution of a past. That is one. The other is, you may, or people more prosperous in this room may even have the luxury of forgetting. Please remember, the widows of Tilak Vihar do not have that luxury. It is not a choice for them. It is not a choice for those boys. For the drug addiction in those rehabilitation colonies, they don't have a choice. They are paying the price, and they will continue to pay the price, and generations will pay the price. This has been one of my big issues whenever I talk about mass violence in this country, is that while we continue to fight for justice for those who died, we often forget that we need to be just as loud and just as strong and just as coherent when we seek justice for the living dead. Because that is what mass violence leaves in its wake. It leaves generations wounded. It leaves destroyed futures. It leaves destroyed families. And they live still in Delhi. Go and see their lives. So do not ever tell me that we can afford to forget. We can't. So that is just one part of what I wanted to say. I also, every time I say, well, I'm grateful for the Sikh Forum ought to know that there are many non-Sikhs in this country, in this city, who will not allow this to be forgotten. It is not the responsibility of the Sikh community alone. It never was, and it never should be. Having said that, let me move on to really what this panel was supposed to be about. I'm a little, I'm kind of zipping through, and Colin, I would like to ask you to ask me to keep quiet if I exceed 10 minutes. Yeah, please. Yeah, that's, all right. Let's talk. So I was supposed to talk about democracy. We are, look, democracy is honestly the Indian version of democracy. We are on a ventilator. What is it? We are a democracy on a ventilator, and we cannot seek a just future unless we repair that democracy. Effective civic participation, a strong civil society, no. Big crackdown. An independent judiciary, no. We have a judiciary that cannot hold the executive to account. The rule of law, absolutely not. What do we have that make up an independent media? Yeah, we've got one independent media in this room at the moment. We've got I am saying, no, let's not be hopeless. We've got a whole space of digital media opening up. But what is called legacy media, and I hate to use that term because it confers on this Godi media too much of the value and the sheen of tradition, which they do not deserve. It's not legacy media, but yes, completely sold out. So what elements of a democracy are we saying that we want to hold on to, and on the basis of which can we move forward to seek this justice? I think Justice Dhingra was quite right when he said it's up to us. It is going to be up to us. It's up to Prasad Singh ji, it's up to Phulka Saab, it's up to me. It's up to Tarlochan Singh ji, it's up to everybody in this room, it's up to lawyers like Colin who continue to fight these battles as well. It's up to Surinder who continues to write, and Siddharth who continues to run an absolutely amazing, independent, fiercely independent media outlet in this atmosphere of a democracy on a ventilator. So I think we can rescue it. I think it will take time. It will take all of us working together. But this is not a battle that we are going to lose. We are not going to lose it. Look at all, look, on a Sunday, you had a house, yeah, the crowd has thinned because everyone's hungry, yes. But on a Sunday, everyone was here. People care. People care that democracy, and to me, the most fundamental as an activist, of course, there are many issues. For me, the denial of justice is the most grave issue that, so what I'm trying to say is we not only have a crisis of legitimacy in our democracy, we have a crisis of widespread impunity for mass violence. Let's hold on to that term for a second. Widespread, historic impunity for mass violence in India. That is the hallmark of how mass violence has been dealt with in our country. And people often say, agar ye nahi hota, to wo nahi hota, wo nahi hota. It's true. It is true. We never stopped. And it's not just India. So of course, we've had 84, we had Nelly massacre in 83, before that we've had Muzaffarnagar, we've said all of this. But the sad truth about all, and by the way, look globally. You want to talk really look what's happening in Gaza today. And before that, look what happened during the Holocaust. Look what happened in Darfur. Look what's happening. Look, mass violence. The one thing about mass violence I really want us to hold on to and never let go of. Mass violence is not caused by people and by frenzied mobs and by communalism and by दिमाग खनक गया और गुस्सा आ गया और आक्रोश हो गया. In episodes of mass violence globally and in India, the state is the criminal. Learn to say it. The state is the criminal. Our language is so weak. What do we say? State did not help victims of 84. Police stood around. They allowed. Somebody enabled. So we use obfuscatory language. Police didn't do anything. Police didn't do its duty. State didn't act. Acts of omission. I'm saying, cut through this garbage. No episode of mass violence in any district of India can continue for more than 24 hours unless the state is the criminal. That is, every IAS officer who served in a district will tell you that basic fact. And that is why we do not have justice. Because ultimately, हम प्यादों को पकड़ते हैं. एक को पकड़ लिया, उसको पकड़ लिया, एक पुलिस वाले को देख लिया, उसके चश्मदीद गवाह भी मिल गए, लेकिन हम स्टेट को कटघरे में खड़े करने की नॉट की हमारी इच्छा नहीं है, हमारे कानून नहीं है. कानून देखिए, कानूनों में फुल्का साहब ने अपनी जिंदगी की जमा पूंजी है और आपको नमन सर. You are you are an example of the kind of battle for justice, enormous respect for you. But he has fought this battle with both hands tied behind his back because the legal framework of India has not supported him. What am I talking about? Look, it's really important for us to understand what we are talking about. What is this legal framework? In mass crimes, like you heard Justice Dhingra talking about omnibus FIRs, 200 murders की एक FIR, summary closure, जी ना इसका कोई सबूत है, ना इसका कोई witness है, complainant भाग गया है, summary closure, फिर witness भाग गए हैं, फिर जी मतलब अनगिनत चीजें आपके कानून में लूपहोल्स हैं, वो आपने ब्यौरा जस्टिस ढींगरा से सुन लिया, करेक्ट? अब इसका हम लोग करें क्या? Actual fact is that if we try and remember what mass violence looks like, feels like, and you know, remember, we have to go back 40 years, and by the way, it brutalizes us to know today is the 3rd of November, 40 years ago, this city was on fire, and that fire did not, and that murdering did not stop till the 7th of November. If then, we are right in the middle of that massacre, that 40-year-old massacre. So yeah, just an aside, we can't forget. But what does it look like? It looks like, yes, murder. It looks like people running. It's people homeless. It's internal displacement of a huge magnitude. In this circumstance, you're expected to follow IPC and CRPC, now the Nyaya Sanhita or whatever, and find your witness. And find that one person. You see, the idea of individual culpability in the IPC is the problem. When there is mass violence, there has to be joint culpability. When there is mass violence, there has to be command responsibility. When there is mass violence, there have to be presumptions made in law. I'll give you an example of what could a presumption look like. Ex-policeman was standing on this chauraha. In the neighborhood, 50 people got murdered. But uska conviction हम कैसे करें? क्योंकि कोई चश्मदीद गवाह नहीं मिल रहा है. अब ये सेफ प्रिजम्पशन है कि नहीं? कोई बंदा दिल्ली पुलिस का बंदूक लिए एक चौराहे पर खड़ा है, पुलिस की वर्दी पहनी है, उसके लेफ्ट राइट आगे पीछे 50 लोग मारे गए. Can we presume that he is guilty of something? We have to have, you see, this is what criminal liability for mass violence has to look like. It can't look the way our criminal justice currently looks like, where you seek accountability for every individual. If an entire police battalion is out there, और सब इतने निकम्मे लगे कि उनकी आंखों के सामने 100 लोग मारे गए, बट कोई किसी को, तो पूरा बटालियन को कटघरे में खड़ा करो. कमांड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी मतलब टॉप ऑर्डर किसने दिया? जिस प्यादे के हाथ में छुरी थी उसको तो आपने पकड़ लिया, जिसने टायर जला जला करके लोगों के गले में लगाए उसको पकड़ लिया. बोला किसने? उसको पकड़ो. कमांड रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लॉ में है नहीं, कलेक्टिव रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लॉ में है नहीं. तो मारे मारे हम फिरते हैं, एक बंदा, एक चश्मदीद गवाह. Our legal, so we tried, of course, as the previous speaker mentioned, that we were not able to create even basic legislative frameworks to prosecute for mass violence. We needed to create that, and we still need to create that. The tragedy is, look, this is not about a government or a political party. Honestly, this, what we are confronting is the very nature of the state. The state will never allow itself to be held accountable. Which is why 40 years down the line, governments have changed. Governments have changed at the center. Governments have changed in states. Could nobody do anything for justice? Because it is not about governments. It is about the very nature of a state that does not allow itself to be put in the dock, that will never allow a provision that is capable of holding an entire police battalion culpable because under its watch so many people were killed. They will not allow that. They will resist that. So they resisted the communal violence bill. It doesn't matter which government or which political party. And we have to acknowledge that, and we have to say, this is the state we are up against. They will never, ever hold themselves. And to that extent, they are all ek thali ke chatte batte. All of them. Okay. Colin, who is someone I have enormous respect for, has told me to keep quiet now. So I will. But yeah, look, I'm just saying that I take courage. I take courage from many battles for justice that are 40 years and longer. I take courage from the comfort women of Japan who have been fighting for their dignity since World War II. So I would say let's take courage and know that you and I are together in this battle. That it looks like a long night, but it's not. We have these moments. We have these moments where I come because I get energy. I come because every speaker in the previous session gave me something new to think about and spoke a truth that gives me hope. Because I think in many ways all of us in India today are living fairly, we're living lives of a certain degree of suffocation where people don't like to be critical, where people don't like to criticize this government or that government, and there are consequences, and we teach our children to just be mainstream, na left dekho, na right dekho, politics ki baat mat karo, justice ki baat mat karo. But to me, the crisis of the legitimacy of our democracy will continue until we are able to deal with the crisis of impunity for mass violence in this country, and we will do it together. Thank you very much.
So, hello everyone. I know I'm standing between you and your lunch. And it's been a long day for everyone. तो सबसे पहले तो मैं प्रताप सिंह जी का शुक्रिया करना चाहती हूँ बुलाने के लिए, मेरे बड़े भाई जोधका साहब और मेरी बुआ ग्रोवर साहब वहाँ बैठे हैं. वो अपने आप को मेरे प्यो दी वड्डी भैन जी बताते हैं. तो वो मुझे यहाँ मिल गया, तो it's like I feel I'm within family. Now I feel deeply honored and humbled to be invited for this remembrance event. And I do recognize my own position as coming from a majoritarian community. I'm more like I belong to the oppressive community in that way. So thank you for inviting me. Now I was really a small child at the time of the 1984 genocide, this massacre. And in some ways I'm grateful कि मैं बच्ची थी, क्योंकि कुछ इतना याद और इतना impact आपको रखने की ज़रूरत नहीं थी. And as I say it, I'm realizing also that some children did not have a childhood that I had. Some people, this event actually denied many children their childhood. So keeping that in mind, तो मैंने ये जो बनाया आज का बोलने का, for that I started reading some materials that the Sikh Forum has put out. आपका जो आर्काइव है वेबसाइट पे उसको देखा, कुछ और किताबें वगैरह वो सब देख के बनाना शुरू किया. तो it's very hard to keep reading that material because I am accessing आप लोग की जनरेशन का जो एक्सपीरियंस रहा होगा उसको मैं डॉक्यूमेंट से एक्सेस कर रही हूँ. सो लिटिल बिट जो मैंने उसको बनाया वो आप लोगों के सामने पेश करती हूँ. हिस्टोरियन हूँ मैं, भगत सिंह के ट्रायल पर भी एक किताब लिखी है और वायलेंस के ऊपर, हिंसा के ऊपर काफ़ी साल से काम कर रही हूँ. तो आई एम कमिंग टू दिस फ्रॉम दैट, नॉट फ्रॉम माई ओन एक्सपीरियंस. सो अगर कुछ आपको बात ना जचे तो प्लीज़, मेरा अनुभव नहीं है इसका खुद का. So, as I was reading about the Sikh massacre of 1984, what I was reminded of continuously as a historian was the Jallianwala Bagh Kand. अब शायद इसके बारे में आप लोग already सोच रहे हो या other people may have said it, but it has an uncanny resemblance to the Jallianwala Bagh event. And also, there is something that ties up the history of the Sikh massacre to the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Yeah, so very quickly I'll just tell you about that. So in both the events, the killing involved, the people who were killed were innocent men. और जिनका राष्ट्रीय उस समय की जो पॉलिटिक्स थी उससे कोई लेना देना नहीं था. बैसाखी के दिन लोग जुटे हुए थे, उनका गांधी से कोई लेना देना नहीं था और बाकी चीज़ों से भी, वो तो अपने मेले के लिए आए थे, अपने मज़े के लिए आए थे. Similarly, many people amongst who were being killed or who family said, हमारा इससे क्या लेना देना, हमें क्यों, हम तो safe हैं. That was the initial feeling, and then the massacre started. So it was not only people who were innocent, the victims were not only innocent people, but also not connected to the larger politics, national politics that was unfolding at that time. Now, there is one thing that connects the two histories. दोनों history के बीच में एक connection है, और वो है the figure of Indira Gandhi. Now, the interesting thing was that she is the one, as the president, as a chairman of the Jallianwala Bagh National Memorial Trust, in 1969 celebrated the 50th anniversary of Jallianwala Bagh. Yeah, and she is the one who gave out Tamrapatra, these copper plates, to the survivors and the families of Jallianwala Bagh. तो ये पहली बार हुआ था हिस्ट्री में कि उस मैसेकर को किसी ने स्टेट के लेवल पे रिकग्नाइज किया था. आज तक ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट ने उसके बारे में माफ़ी भी नहीं, दे हैवंट इवन अपोलोजाइज फॉर इट. तो एंड ये जो ताम्रपत्र हैं लोगों ने अभी तक अपने पास रखे हुए हैं, क्योंकि उनके लिए दिस वाज सच अ यूनिक स्पेशल इवेंट ऑफ द स्टेट अपोलोजाइजिंग टू देम और रिकग्नाइजिंग देयर पेन एंड ट्रॉमा. नाउ दिस इज द वेरी वुमन who undertakes the Operation Blue Star. So see the irony in this. And it was her killing that sparks off, as we know, the 1984 massacre. So dono merely as a historian are connected with each other. But however, today I'm going to quickly, very quickly reflect on two other similarities between the Jallianwala Bagh incident and the 1984 massacre. तो पहला है कि दोनों ही Indian political history में they are an important turning point. दोनों के साथ एक भारतीय इतिहास अलग रुख लेता है, एक मोड़ लेता है. वो क्या है? So all of you know the story of Jallianwala Bagh, so I'll say it in one line. Now, historian B.N. Datta in a seminal work on Jallianwala Bagh, you know, what he says, उसकी significance ये थी, it marked a clear breach between the state and the people. Up until then, Punjab was generally loyal to the British Empire. And the soldiers from Punjab were crucial in British victory in the World War I. But Jallianwala Bagh के बाद there is no turning back, and Punjab becomes the nemesis of the empire. If it was not for the Jallianwala Bagh, Gandhi wouldn't have launched the non-cooperation movement, we wouldn't have had Bhagat Singh, and there wouldn't be Udham Singh. तो वो एक fount बन गया, वो एक जरिया बन गया पूरा एक, उसके बाद there was no looking back. The empire began to count its days after that. So that way it was a seminal event. And people who lived in the vicinity of Jallianwala Bagh described Amritsar as शहर दा सब तो वड्डा हादसा चे. It was and this can be said for Delhi in 1984. इस शहर का सबसे बड़ा हादसा था वो. After partition, Delhi had not experienced that kind of upheaval. So we know that rioting took place across India, and there were killings, like about 4,000 people in Delhi and many more across India. That happened, but Delhi was the epicenter. उसके बाद turning back नहीं था. Yeah? Now, I'm going to connect this to the 1984, what happens. Now, it was very much orchestrated and planned in the way, so many speakers since morning have said that, in the way Jallianwala Bagh was. वो भी orchestrated था, planned था, spontaneous नहीं था. And then how does it become a turning point? उसके बारे में सुबह से एक दो speakers बोल चुके हैं, but I'm going to add something to that. Yeah? Now, what has been said so far is कि वो turning point था क्योंकि state actors now could perpetrate violence with impunity, right? इसमें थोड़ा सा और add करूँगी मैं. Now, it was a turning point because it also stretched the definition of what we call politics of possible. क्या संभव था, इसकी imagination जो थी वो उस event ने stretch कर दी. Yeah? It was tested and demonstrated, this politics of possible. And what was this politics of possible? किस चीज़ की नई एक imagination create हो गई थी of unlimited potential of politics of retribution. कैसे जब state कुछ करने पे, violence करने पे उतर आती है तो कितनी clearly, कितनी how the ranks will close, how the governmental ranks will close, and it will perpetrate violence. It showed that. And what was possible was being demonstrated in in the capitals of one of the largest democracies of the world. कहने के लिए हम लोग democracy इसके बारे में बात हो चुकी है, but I'll come back to this point. Now, this became a template for the Bombay killings in 1992 and also the Godhra program. Now, post 2002, we have begun talking about the Gujarat model, right? But one forgets that a model pre-existed in Delhi, and we can call it the Delhi model. Yeah. Now, more so, this was one point that has been raised and I'm adding to it. Actually, मेरे हिसाब से 1984 का सिख मैसेकर का एक और महत्व है टर्निंग पॉइंट की तरह, और वो है that it laid the grounds for the national politics to pivot to the right. We generally associate the rise of the right wing in India to the year 1991 with Advani's Yathrata. And लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि it's the political configurations amongst several things, it's the 1984 the massacre of the Sikh people that really, started this, laid the ground for the rise of the right wing. And how so? Why do I say this? Now, in the 1984 elections, there is a silent alliance between RSS and Congress. If you read Rashid Kidwai's book, Ballet's 10 Episodes of Indian Democracy, it talks about it. Now, BJP was formed in 1980, and its leaders, such as Advani, actually supported the Operation Blue Star. And one of the RSS leaders, Nanaji Deshmukh, wrote an article called Moment of Soul Searcher in this journal called Pratipaksh. And he praised Indira Gandhi for Operation Blue Star and blamed the Sikh leaders for the 1984 massacre. So you see coming together of different political parties, and I think सुबह भी ये कहा जा रहा था कि already इंदिरा गांधी ने वो mobilization शुरू कर दिया था, रुद्राक्ष पहनना शुरू कर दिया था, majoritarianism की बात करनी शुरू कर दी थी, and so a ground is being laid for actually what we are seeing now. So you can't tell the history of the present without referring back to 1984. So that's my point about it being a significant turning point in Indian politics. दूसरा है हम कैसे याद रखेंगे, बहुत सारी बात कही गई है, हमें याद रखना है, याद रखना चाहिए, बहुत important है. But my question is, what shaped the memories of the families of the victims? जो survive करे, उनकी memories को किस चीज़ ने shape किया है? And इसका मैं एक उदाहरण लेती हूँ कि जलियांवाला बाग के जो survivors थे, उनकी memories को कैसे, उनकी memories का क्या हुआ? What shaped their memories? So in 2019, on the 100th anniversary of Jallianwala Bagh, historian Nanak Datta went back to Amritsar and interviewed the family members of the victims and survivors. And this is what they had to say. तो एक दो मैं आपको बताती हूँ और फिर उसको 84 से जोड़ेंगे. So this man called Vijay Kohli says, मर गए जेड़े मरन वाले सी, कोई नहीं परवाह करदा. Another man said, कौन याद करदा है? And this is the utter disillusionment that the people, survivors of Jallianwala Bagh were talking about. And that was at the core of their memory. So what shaped their memory was not just the event of the massacre. What shaped their memory was the indifference of the successive governments, including the Indian one, to their own plight. And this deeply echoes the sentiments of the victims of the survivors of the 1984 massacre, the indifference, the sheer indifference. And दूसरा इसमें जुड़ा है वो है trauma. एक trauma को invisibilize करा गया, जो उनका pain है कहीं invisibilize हो गया है. That while the mainstream narrative has become obsessed with the numbers killed and the commission reports and the legalese, कि सरकार ने क्या नहीं किया, कोर्ट में क्या नहीं हुआ, it has become obsessed with that. We keep talking about it, right? But for the people who survived, it was their survival itself that became an issue. And their trauma was not just about the event, but अब जिए कैसे उसके साथ? How do we move on? Because everybody is asking us to move on. And ये जो death थी, like, there was this scholar, Veena Das, जिन्होंने anthropologist थी, उस दौरान उन्होंने relief camps में काफ़ी काम किया था. Some of you may know about her. She wrote a very nice article about the work she did with the widows and the children. And it got published in around 86. तो ये छपा था लगभग 1990 के around. So she says something that the women in these families, for them, the death of their family members violated the cultural ideas of what is a good death. एक अच्छी मौत का जो एक आइडिया होता है वही वायलेट हो गया था. ना इसको हम अच्छा कह सकते थे ना बुरा, वो तो आदमी मर गया उनका. They saw no heroism in these deaths. आज हम उनको martyrs बोल सकते हैं, but those women did not see them as such. Yeah, for them these were utterly meaningless and futile, deaths. And when a death like that occurs, what is the funerary form? What is the form of mourning? तो कई लोगों को तो डेड बॉडीज हाथ लगी. अभी मैं यहाँ बैठकर अजीत कौर का जो लिखा हुआ था कि एक महिला है, उसको अपने बेटे की आधी जली हुई बॉडी मिली, तो उसने फिर पूरे घर की लकड़ियाँ वगैरह निकाल कर उसका क्रेमेशन किया वहाँ पर, उसको वो बॉडी मिली. पर कई लोगों को बॉडीज़ ही नहीं मिली. एज सिद्धार्थ वाज सेइंग इन द मॉर्निंग, एविडेंस क्या है, डिनाइल किस पे बेस्ड होता है? तो दिल्ली की बहुत सारी पुलिस चौकियों में बॉडीज़ को लाकर जला दिया गया, वो बॉडीज़ मिली ही नहीं। और जहाँ पर जिसका SHO जो पकड़ा गया, जो एक्चुअली हो गॉट ब्लेम फॉर सेवरल थिंग्स बिकॉज ही डिड नॉट डिस्पोज ऑफ द बॉडीज़ इन टाइम, राइट? सो आई वांट टू क्विकली टेल यू द स्टोरी ऑफ शांति, या एंड शी इज़, आई नो त्रिलोकपुरी के बारे में ना काफ़ी लिखा गया है, पर सुल्तानपुरी के एरिया में भी काफ़ी ये दंगा काफ़ी ज़्यादा था उसका. इट्स some things get talked about, some things don't. So Shanti was a woman living in सुल्तानपुरी. एंड ये सिकली घर हैं, कॉपर स्मिथ्स थे, पूरा लोअर कास्ट, एंड उसका बेटा, उसके 2 बेटे और पति को पकड़ लिया गया. एंड वो छुपने के लिए किसी ने, वही हुआ, छुपने के लिए गए, किसी ने बता दिया एक घर में छुपे हैं, और उस घर में आग लगा दी गई. एंड द किड्स मस्ट हैव रन अप टू द टेरेस and held on to each other as they were burnt. So when she found them, they were holding on to each other. So it's terrible. It's terrible to read all that. And after that, she had 2 daughters. But with the death of her children and her husband, her world had come to an end. वो 2 बेटियों को भी वो उनसे कनेक्ट नहीं कर पा रही थी. बड़ी बेटी पास में आती थी तो उसको मारने लगती थी वो, कि तूने रोका नहीं, तूने उनको रोका नहीं, तेरी वजह से मर गए. Because there was nothing she could hold on to. So here is Shanti, who was unable to get beyond what happened. Yeah? And आज हम ये इवेंट कर रहे हैं क्योंकि we feel we are obligated to the dead. जिनकी मौतें गई, उनके प्रति हमारा कोई obligation है. All of us live with that. अरे वो कह के गई थी, माता जी कह के गई थी या कुछ. So we all feel obligated. What was her obligation to the dead? So in order to fulfill her obligation to the dead, the day her father-in-law went to the market and the children went to the school, she hung herself. Yeah, in that she made sure she had done her good by way of those deaths. So you see, this is the kind of trauma that no court can ever compensate for, no government can ever compensate for. And such trauma, nothing compensates for it first, but witnessing it and listening to it does help people get on with their lives. So as a community, I feel that yes, while the efforts to approach the state, approach the courts should continue, if there was more support for these, now we're 40 years down, and obviously kids don't want to talk about this, they want to move on. Yeah, but can they move on when the trauma is lodged in your unconscious? So your past is something that is always going to have a hold on you. And it was also bothering me when I came here today, there are some young kids in the audience, but not enough. Why didn't your grandchildren come with you? Why didn't you bring, आप जाते हैं गुरुद्वारा तो लेके जाते हैं ना, तो why are they not here? Who is going to be the memory keeper? I, as a concerned citizen of Delhi, I am going to be your memory keeper. As a historian, I am going to be your memory keeper. But what about children of your community? Bring them in. They need to know. I know आप shield कर रहे हैं. I know you guys are protecting them. But till when? Yeah. So that, and the last, its time is done. Okay, जल्दी से मैं conclude करती हूँ. तो एक मैं जो यहाँ बोल देना चाहती हूँ वो है untold story of sexual violence. वो अब हमें, मैं सुबह बुटालिया जी से, ऋषि जी से बात कर रही थी, उन्होंने कहा कि हम लोगों को पता ही नहीं चला, बोला ही नहीं किसी ने. तो एक होता है, एक दौर होता है जहाँ हम साइलेंस को रिस्पेक्ट करते हैं, राइट? नहीं बोल रहे तो कोई बात नहीं, पर एक दौर आता है जहाँ साइलेंस को खोलना भी ज़रूरी है. हाँ, तो आई थिंक दैट वी नीड more conversation. So next time you hold this event, please invite those people. Let's have more conversation about it. It needs to be talked about. Our collective shame, we need to embrace it. Shame हमारी नहीं है, उनकी है जिन्होंने किया ये. So let's talk about it. Yeah. Now, in conclusion, what I've attempted to show is how the histories of Jallianwala Bagh and the 1984 massacre are twinned, how they're conjoined. Now, this leads me to the title of the panel. Was 1984 massacre a democracy's predicament? तो इस बात का जवाब देने के लिए, सवाल का जवाब देने के लिए मैं दोबारा जलियांवाला बाग का एग्जाम्पल लेती हूँ. तो जिस दिन ये हुआ जलियांवाला बाग का कांड, उसके पहले एक मुनादी वाला पूरे शहर में घूमता हुआ, ढोल पीटता हुआ मुनादी कर रहा था. और मुनादी थी, खलकत खुदा की, मुलक बादशाह का, हुक्म जनरल डायर का. तो ये डायर जो है समय समय पे बदलता रहा है, हर दौर का अपना डायर हुआ है. डेमोक्रेसी इज ऑल्सो, आजकल हम उनको डंकापति कहते हैं. डायर नहीं डंकापति. The moral, so democracies have their own tyrannies and their own tyrants. And the moral check of the democracy is, जैसे अगर हम उसका barometer check करना हो कि democracy ठीक चल रही है कि नहीं, so we should see how it treats its minorities, we should see how it treats its disabled, the queer and the historically marginalized. The Sikh massacre actually holds up a mirror to Indian democracy. Now मैंने ना इसको अपना पूरा वक्तव्य खत्म करने के लिए एक छोटी सी कविता मैंने सोचा था पढ़ दूंगी क्योंकि काफ़ी हेवी हो गया है, right? And I thought I wanted to end my thing on a note of hope. So if I have the chair's permission, I'll quickly read out a small bit of poem. हाँ, तो ये आप जानते हैं इस कविता को, बस पढ़ देना चाहती हूँ कि मुझे लगा कि थोड़ा भारी, थोड़ा कम लगेगा. I want to be able to say that no, we will go on, right? तो ये कविता पाश की है. पाश को आप सब जानते हैं. हाँ, उसको भी रेडिकल था तो उसको मार दिया गया था 89 में. Now somehow I felt that this poem captures the fact that all of us have come together today and borne witness to history. हम लोग भी witnesses हैं, जो उस दौरान के लोग थे हम लोग भी हैं. तो जल्दी से पढ़ देती हूँ. कविता का नाम है मैं घास हूँ. मैं घास हूँ, मैं आपके हर किए धरे पर उगाऊंगा. बम फेंक दो चाहे विश्वविद्यालय पर, बना दो हॉस्टल को मलबे का ढेर. सुहागा फिरा दो भले ही हमारी झोपड़ियों पर, मेरा क्या करोगे, मैं तो घास हूँ, हर चीज़ पर उगाऊंगा. बंगे को ढेर कर डालो, संगरूर मिटा डालो, धूल में मिला दो लुधियाना जिले को, मेरी हरियाली लेकिन अपना काम करेगी. 2 साल 10 साल बाद सवारियां फिर किसी कंडक्टर से पूछेंगी ये कौन सी जगह है, मुझे बनारा उतार देना जहाँ हरे घास के जंगल हैं. मैं घास हूँ, अपना काम करूँगा, मैं आपके हर किए धरे पर उगाऊंगा.
लंच काफ़ी ठंडा हो रहा, भुख भी सानू बड़ी लगी हैगी. तो मैं 5 मिनट बोलूँगा. मैं चेयर में भी सुनना चाहूँगा. 2-3 पॉइंट है क्योंकि मेरा नंबर लगेगा इस वास्ते बोलना चाहिए हैगा. सो आई बिगिन विद फराज स्टेटमेंट. फरा पहली जी स्पीकर सी, अनफॉर्चुनेटली शी हैड टू लीव. उन्हें कहा कि इस शहर दे विच काफ़ी सारे नॉन सिख भी हैगे ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਭੁੱਲਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਦੇਣਗੇ. ਜਦੋਂ ਗੱਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਹਾਂ ਭਈ ਸਿੱਖ ਫੋਰਮ ਨੇ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਮੋਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਅਲਾਈਵ ਰੱਖਿਆ, तो she was saying that there are lots of non-Sikhs in this city who would not let it to be forgotten. I'm not very sure. ਇਸ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 2 ਇਵੈਂਟ ਹੋਇਆ 40 ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੈਂ ਅਟੈਂਡ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੈਗੇ, ਉਹ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਕੀਤੇ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਮੋਸਟਲੀ ਅਟੈਂਡ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਹੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ. So I think we should recognize that, we are not living in a thriving democracy. So we are in very cynical. हाँ. चलो, थैंक यू वेरी मच. सानू नहीं से पता, मोबिलाइज करना चाहिए, होर भी होने चाहिए. पर मैं जी गल करने की कोशिश कर रहा सीगा कि जिन्ना होना चाहिए साडी मैमरी दे विच जिन्नी को गल होनी चाहिए उन्नी नहीं हैगी. उदों मैं लगता काफ़ी घट हैगी. साडे अपने परिवारां च भी नहीं हैगी. जिहड़ी अपर्णा ने गल कीती, बच्चों ने गल नहीं होंदी. मैं लगता वी हैव टू टॉक मच मोर अबाउट इट. दैट्स द ओनली पॉइंट आई वाज मेकिंग. एंड क्रॉस सैक्शन ऑफ इंडिया नीड्स टू टॉक अबाउट इट. दूजी गल मैं लगता है नाल रिलेटेड गल जिहड़ी गल स्टेट की गल फरा ने भी कीती सी ते जिहड़ी अपर्णा गल कर रही सी जलियांवाले बाग दे नाल इहनूं कंपेयर कीता किवें जाए. Why should we compare it with Jallianwala Bagh? Another reason for that is that it makes us recognize the fact that our state is still a colonial state, or significant part of the Indian state is still a colonial state, which includes your judiciary, which includes your police, which includes our own attitude in terms of divisions that we have in our society. साडी सोसाइटी अजे भी वही जो डिवाइड एंड रूल वाली पॉलिसी चल रही है जी कलोनीयल स्टेट ने इतने इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज की सी. कलोनीयल स्टेट ही चाहता सीगा, नहीं चाहता सीगा कि जस्टिस की कोई गल होए. वो ढींगड़ा साहब जी गल कर रहे थे वो तो बिल्कुल एकदम सानू एकदम जो रोंगटे खड़े कराने वाली गल है कि ये डेमोक्रेसी नहीं है, सानू गलतफहमी है कि किसी डेमोक्रेसी रह रहे हैं. जो तुम बच के रहना भाई, किधरे कोई जस्टिस जस्टिस ना ही चीज़ नहीं हैगी. सो वी आर स्टिल लिविंग इन ए कलोनीयल स्टेट. आई थिंक दैट इज समथिंग विच कम्स आउट वेरी क्लीयरली. की अचीव किया 40 साल दे विच असीं जून में भी करते हैं, नवंबर भी करते हैं. कुछ बदलिया, होर भी बड़े लोग प्रोटेस्ट करते हैं. फुलका साहब ने कहा बड़े ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, ह्यूमन राइट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, मैं भी बहुत सारे देखा. बड़ी पॉलिटिक्स भी रही है. कुछ बदलिया देश के 40 साल 1984 ते अज दे विच कोई फर्क हैगा? फर्क यह हैगा कि वी आर परहैप्स मच वर्स ऑफ देन 40 ईयर्स. 40 साल पहले फिर भी थोड़ी जुडिशरी तो उम्मीद सी, अज उस तो भी घट हैगी. We have become much worse. Institutional framework of Indian state has become more anti-people than it ever was before. ਹੁਣ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹਾਲਤ ਮਾੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ, ਇਹ ਵੀ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਰਿਕਗਨਾਈਜ਼ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਏਗਾ। ਪਰ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਸਾਈਡ ਤੇ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਦੋ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਵਿਚ ਆਈ ਵਾਂਟ ਟੂ ਸੇ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨੈਰੇਟਿਵ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੁਣਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ, ਸਿੱਖ ਫੋਰਮ ਐਂਡ ਸਿੱਖ ਲੀਡਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਸ਼ੁੱਡ ਟੇਕ ਕ੍ਰੈਡਿਟ ਫॉर ਇਟ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੀਇਨਫੋਰਸ ਕਰੀਏ, ਉਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖ ਮਾਈਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਨੈਰੇਟਿਵ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਫਸੇ। ਪਹਿਲੇ ਵਾਲੇ ਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਨਵਕਿਰਨ ਜੀ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਵੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਸਟਿਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਮਾਈਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਰਾਈਟਸ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤੀ। ਜਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਇਸੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੈਸ਼ਨ ਹੈਗਾ, ਇਹ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੈਟਿਕ ਪ੍ਰੀਡਿਕਮੈਂਟਸ ਹੈਗੇ। ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਇੱਥੇ ਤਾਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਜੇ ਇੱਥੇ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਦਾ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ। ਹਿੰਦੂ ਕੋਈ ਸਾਰਾ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਗਰੀਬ ਹੈਗੇ। ਇੱਥੇ 80% ਜੇ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਗਰੀਬ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉਨੇ ਹੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈਗੇ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈਗੇ। ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਚੋਂ ਘੱਟ ਗਰੀਬ ਹੈਗੇ। ਜਦੋਂ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੇਸੀ ਮਰੇਗੀ ਤਾਂ ਇਹ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਮਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਇਨਜਸਟਿਸ ਮਰੇਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਮਰ ਰਿਹਾ। ਜੇ ਇਨਜਸਟਿਸ ਦੇ ਅਗੇਂਸਟ ਲੜਨਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਵੇਅਰ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੈਰੇਟਿਵ ਹੈਜ਼ ਬੀਨ, ਸਿੱਖ ਫੋਰਮ ਦਾ ਨੈਰੇਟਿਵ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਜ਼ ਬੀਨ, ਇਟ ਹੈਜ਼ ਆਲਵੇਜ਼ ਬੀਨ ਅ ਨੈਰੇਟਿਵ ਆਫ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ, rights and justice, not of minority rights, not of dividing. Minority majority wala narrative in itself, we need to come out of it. Ithe koi majority nahi hegi. Everyone has to be a citizen of India. Sikhs are citizens of India. We are not a minority of India. You treat us as demographic minority, which we are numerically, but Sikhs are not a minority. मैं कभी अपने आप को minority नहीं समझा। मैं सारे देश ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈਗਾ। ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਜਦੋਂ ਦਿਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਆਵਾਂਗੇ, ਉਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਬਾਹਰ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਲਿਆ ਸਕਾਂਗੇ। ਤੇ ਇਹੀ ਇੱਕ ਤਰੀਕਾ ਹੈਗਾ that we can get out of the colonial narrative. ਇਹ minority majority ਸਾਨੂੰ colonial ਰੂਲਰਾਂ ਨੇ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ। ਜਦੋਂ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਰਾਜ ਸੀਗਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਤੇ, ਸਿੱਖ ਸਾਰੇ 7% ਸੀਗੇ। ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਕਿ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਮਾਈਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਰਾਜ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ। ਇਹ ਅੱਜ ਮਾਈਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਬਣ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਸਿੱਖ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨੈਰੇਟਿਵ ਚੇਂਜ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਨੈਰੇਟਿਵ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਫਾਊਂਡੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਿਹੜੀ colonial ਰੂਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈਗੀ। ਤੇ ਮੇਰਾ ਫਾਈਨਲ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੇ ਆਊਟ ਕੀ ਹੈਗਾ, ਅੱਗੇ ਕੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏ, ਲਰਨ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਏ। ਆਈ ਥਿੰਕ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੈਸਟ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਪਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪਿਛਲੇ 5 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਇਆ, ਉਹ ਹੈ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫਾਰਮਰਸ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦਾ ਈਡੀਐਮ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇੱਕ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਦੇ ਨੈਰੇਟਿਵ ਨੂੰ ਉਸ ਸਟੇਟ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੜਿਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਟੇਟ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੜ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂਗਾ, ਇੰਨਾ ਪਾਵਰਫੁਲ ਸਟੇਟ ਸੀਗਾ। ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀ ਦੀ ਭਾਵਨਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਯੂਨਿਟੀ, ਉਹਦੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਨਕਲੂਸਿਵ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰੋ। ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਚਲਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਸੀਗਾ ਉੱਥੇ, ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਚਲਾ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਸੀਗਾ, ਉਹ ਪਾਰਟ ਸੀਗਾ ਉਸ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਦਾ। ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਜ਼ਬਾ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹਦੀਆਂ ਪੋਸੀਬਿਲਿਟੀਜ਼ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ। ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਔਨ ਦਾ ਪੋਜ਼ਿਟਿਵ ਸਾਈਡ, ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਅਦੇ ਸਪਿਰਿਟ ਬੱਚੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਲੋਕ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਐਗਜ਼ਿਬਿਟ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਵੈਰੀ ਮਚ।
When the 84 riots took place, I was in Bombay. I missed not carnage really, I missed the genocide, the ethnic cleansing of Sikhs in Delhi. I came with my friends from time to time, went to some areas and then went back. But many years later, when Paramjit Kaur Kalra's case came to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court sent it to the NHRC to look at compensation, my friend Navkiran Singh, who's there at the back of the audience now, and I'm eternally grateful to him for that, he got me involved in that case before Dr. Anand, who was the chairman of the NHRC. We did a lot of hard work. We gave all the evidence. We gave the names of all the victims. And at the end of the day, you cannot imagine what we got as compensation for those who were killed. Dr. Anand gave us 2 lakhs, a princely sum of 2 lakhs for deaths. And then a little later, when we pointed out that their bodies were cremated without telling their parents and without handing their bodies over to their parents, he gave us another princely sum of 1 lakh by way of compensation. And if you understand that this was given sometime in the 90s, late 90s, and the killings took place maybe 30 years earlier, if you count interest at 6%, we probably got 500 rupees for a death and maybe 250 rupees for denying them their burial rights under Sikh customs. What a shameful experience it was for me, and what a shameful period for the NHRC. If there is one line of occurrences that cover all the riots from 84, all the ethnic cleansing, genocide riots, call it whatever you want, from 1984 till the present riots in Manipur. It is the shameful role of the judiciary and of the chief justices who presided over the Supreme Court during that period. There's no doubt about it. And there's one person who said from the audience a little while ago, say sorry, Supreme Court, say sorry. And I think the time will come when the court will be forced to apologize. It's not unusual for governments to apologize 20, 30 years later for their treatment of people who they were to protect and who died when they had the power to protect them. What was incredible also was the counter-affidavit filed by the Punjab police. Little known, I think. They said, yes, we had the boys in our custody. It wasn't as if they took the defense that there was a firing between the police and the so-called terrorists, and then the Sikh boys died. No, he said, we had them in our custody. We held them in front of us, and we went to the areas where the terrorists were lurking, and we wanted them to point out to us where the terrorists were. And the terrorists opened fire and the boys died. So the open declaration that boys were used as human shields, which is a war crime. The Israelis do it, always with the Palestinians. And you remember that BBC footage of the Palestinian captive tied to a jeep of, the Israelis as they went through certain areas using Kashmir. So India is a shameful country in that sense. We can say openly we use them as human shields. Hey, sir. Sir. Sir, I don't think you know what meeting you are in here. Just wait, sir. Sir, 1 second. No, sir. Sir. No, 1 second. 1 second, sir. Let me. Sir, 1 second. Sir, I assure you, because I'm. Wait, sir. Wait, sir. No problem. I grew up in a custom of people interrupting meetings, and I interrupted often. Sir, I assure you, after that gentleman finishes for 2 meetings, I'll give you a chance as well. All right? Fair enough? 2 minutes chance for you. You let him speak. It's all right, not a problem. Wait, sir. Wait. Now let me finish. I want my 10 minutes. Yes, sir. Yeah. So that was the NHRC with Dr. Anand, a brilliant judge, otherwise a very fine judge, very good judgments and so on. From Dr. Anand down to Arun Mishra, the pathetic role of our NHRC. In 1991, we saw the Bombay Carnage, you can say, genocide. It was directed against the Muslim community. Justice Suresh, now dead, played a masterful role in that, and he took judges with him. He went to the areas where the Muslims were killed. He held people's tribunal in public and in slum areas and so on. The finest judge you could find, that we could find as young people, with all our anger and resentment against government and the police, the finest judge that we could find. Justice Sri Krishna played a very important role and made one of the only, I think, commission of inquiry reports that was spectacular. Went to the area, vilified by Balasaheb Thackeray and his group. This is not by some people, not by, that he's a Hindu judge, how can he do justice to Muslims? That was what was told to him. And Sri Krishna did such a fantastic report, beautiful report. In that report, I'll look at one aspect. He made a list of 25 officers, very senior officers of the Bombay police, who participated in the killings and actually killed Muslims in the frenzy that happened. Nobody implemented that report. Many years later, we took it to the Supreme Court on the simple point that this is the list of the officers who Sri Krishna found had actually opened fire on Muslims and helped the mobs to kill Muslims. They're alive. They're all here. Isn't it time to punish them even though it's late? And the Supreme Court let us down. Too late. Many of them have retired. Yeah, and it's a weak excuse. I must tell you, in international law, it is not uncommon. When states participate in genocide and ethnic cleansing, it's not uncommon that many years pass from the killings to justice being done. And in many countries in the world, justice has been done 20 years later, 30 years later, and people have gone to jail many years later for the crimes that they committed. Manipur, now we come to recent day, and the killing of the Kukis or tribals, supported by the Home Minister of India, supported by the Chief Minister of the state, supported by the Home Minister of the state, and supported by the police force. All from the same Maitai community, though the Maitai community is very fine people who stand up for justice. In May 23, last year, we approached the Supreme Court and said, bring out the army. Please bring out the army, because the police are participating in the killings, the Chief Minister is involved in the killings, the Home Minister of the state, and the Home Minister at the center. And Chief Justice Chandrachud told me, he scolded me, never in 70 years have we called the army out. Has the Supreme Court directed the army to keep law and order? And we don't intend to begin now. All right, May 23. Today as we stand, that number of killings have gone up from 15 in May 23 to 210 today. What would you say to a judiciary that has the power to stop the killings on the spot? You have the power. You alone have the power to stop it. And you don't do it. He was wrong, actually, when he said we have never called out the army. In the Kandamal killings of Christians, we moved the court on Monday morning. Justice Balakrishnan was Chief Justice of India. Monday morning, we moved the Supreme Court and said, the assailants planned to bring Mr. Togadia to Orissa in 3 days' time. And he plans to do a Kalash Yatra through the communities and burn the huts on either side. And look at what a judge can do. He said, ask Mr. Gopal Subramaniam, the Solicitor General, to come to court with instructions at 2 o'clock. See how the case went. Morning 10:30, 2 o'clock Gopal Subramaniam, one of the finest Solicitor Generals we ever had. You can compare him to today's case. You can really compare him to today's case. And he told Justice Balakrishnan, after he had stayed, he said, Mr. Togadia will not enter Orissa. Pass the order. And then he asked Mr. Gopal Subramaniam, sir, what do you say to the idea that the army should be called out? And Gopal Subramaniam said, sir, as we speak, the paratroopers are in the air. Can you imagine the power of the Supreme Court if you want to do something to do it? And the awful consequences that follow, the genocide that follows if a Chief Justice keeps silent. Delhi riots, where Anurag Thakur and his friends, Parvesh Verma and all of them, we caught him on camera at a public function saying, and asking people to chant after him, Desh ke gadaro ko goli maar salo ko. We got him on camera. Then we got him on camera again repeating it as he went throughout Delhi. We went to the High Court and filed the case. High Court judges were not willing to touch the case. Not their fault. Not their fault. They could see what happened to Justice Muralidhar when he took up the case. Huh? Not their fault. Judges are afraid to stand up to government and then take the consequences. Good judges also. Anyway, High Court didn't take it for 1-2 years. We went to the Supreme Court. We said, sir, we are filing a writ petition. He said, why are you coming directly to the Supreme Court? We said, sir, because the High Court hasn't taken our matter for 2 years. It was adjourned and adjourned and adjourned and adjourned. Supreme Court also didn't have the courage to take it. I'll tell you openly. Didn't have the courage to take it. And I feel very bad about that. Because you have the power to stop the killings and you didn't have the... Sent us back. And that Delhi High Court case asked for a simple demand that an FIR should be registered against Anurag Thakur and his friends. Justice Muralidhar, it happened to come before him. It was just a stroke of luck. It was actually before the Chief Justice's bench. I think he was absent that day. It came before Justice Muralidhar's bench. And he took it up immediately. He looked at the photographs, he looked at the slogans and said, this is straight off a cognizable offense. You'll have to register an FIR. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Then, yes, of course. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And he looked at it. There was a to and fro between Tushar Mehta and Justice Muralidhar. Muralidhar was very polite, very firm, but he said, you have to register an FIR. Tushar was getting hot under the collar, getting a little agitated. And then he said something, and I think both Justice Muralidhar and I made a mistake there. He said, give me time till tomorrow morning. And I saw him go out of the court in a huff. He was very angry. He was very angry that there's a judge to stand up to him and say, you will register an FIR against a sitting cabinet minister. And of course, members of parliament who uttered that slogan. He was very angry. And now today we heard, what I didn't know was that in the evening, I think 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, he was asked to go. I felt, perhaps now in retrospect, the bench, it's very difficult to decide these things, should not have granted the adjournment. Argue now, take instructions now, argue now. Perhaps even Justice Muralidhar could not have imagined that in the night he would, or in the evening he would get that transfer order. It's not a normal transfer, it's a transfer designed to interfere with the proceedings before the High Court. So I blame myself later, I blame myself. I said I should have had the courage to go to the Supreme Court immediately. Win or lose, it didn't matter. I should have gone to the Supreme Court immediately and said, this is gross interference with the proceedings of the court. Bring him back, let him finish his case, then send him wherever you want to do. I didn't have that good thinking, I didn't have the courage to say that. And so this is the Supreme Court that we must stand up to. And as Justice Chandrachud leaves, he leaves as part of the same tendency that didn't have the courage to stand up to the government in the Manipur massacres and didn't have this courage to do anything in Delhi riots, which took place under his watch, and also Jamia, where 100 students were brutally beaten with fractures and one person lost his eye and so on. We really have to say to the Supreme Court, and with that I end, Supreme Court, nothing else. The citizens of this country ask for nothing else. Simply say sorry for all the sins of the past.
Kindly, please. Alak Sahab. Please. ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਦਿਓ। We have Mr. Malhotra here, Manjeet Singh Malhotra. We have Dr. Bhatti here. Please bless the children. Sir Inder P. Singh ji, please come and come bless the children. Please come. Come. Aye. So side by side, you give a vote of thanks. President was supposed to be there. He is busy with the children now.